I'll call to order the regular June meeting of the Finance Committee. We have a number of and quite a few items to go over today. What I would recommend, since we are starting a little early, is to start with the regular agenda and see if we can get through it, and then we'll go to the budget, and then how far over we go on the budget, and whether or not we have I think this Thursday is the contingency date for another meeting. Is that correct?
It's actually tomorrow at 2 o'clock.
2 o'clock's the contingency. Okay. So with that, we will go to, and the reason I'm starting with the, Molly, have a seat. Welcome. The regular meeting, there are a number of items that need to get done. There are a number of contracts in here for bond projects, most of them on consent, but start with that and get all that done. So with that said, we will start with consent. Are there any items anyone would want pulled? Ms. Burke.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I would like to have C6A and
C6A,
6B,
6B,
6E,
6E.
yes,
Is that it?
and I want C8 to be explained.
And C8 comments. Okay, Ms. Adams, do you have anything?
I move for approval.
Wait a minute, I got to finish, Mr. Montgomery. Okay, do I have a motion to approve the balance?
I move that we approve the balance of the consent agenda.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have a second, a motion and a second to approve the balance of consent. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed likewise. With that, we will start with C6A. If the secretary will read that, please.
Item C6A, resolution approving a contract with Data Network Solutions Incorporated for computer storage equipment to Data Network Solutions Incorporated in the amount of $309,754.
Okay, Ms. Burke, do you have a
Yes,
specific
I'd just
question?
like whoever's in the department to give an explanation about that.
Okay. Tom?
Sorry, I couldn't hear you.
Just need a 2-minute presentation, please.
Okay. We have, within the two data centers, one in this building, one at the Wake Forest Secondary.
There's something wrong with the mic.
Hang on a minute. Yeah. Start over again. There was a little motion in the room. Go
Can
ahead.
you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. We have two data centers, one in this building and one in the secondary data center we work with Wake Forest on. And in both these data centers, we have hundreds of disk drives, and there's controllers that manage the information that flows between all our data and all our business systems and servers, including internal systems and all our internet applications and sites that our citizens go to. And what this request is to purchase two controllers to the contract was up this year for support, and it's at a price right now where we're actually better off economically purchasing new controllers for 3 years that includes the warranty and support than paying for 3 years of support by itself. So request is to purchase new controllers with a 3-year warranty for both data centers.
Okay. Jeff, I think you had a comment.
I know this is time sensitive, so I will not oppose this, but I used to be in the refurbished computer equipment business, and there is a local company here in town that does this type of business. And looking through here, I mean, I know that what the manufacturers do, they set their requirements so there can only be one bidder on these projects, and so I feel like there's opportunity for us to save money, to stretch our budgets down the line. Going forward, I'd like to take a look at using that as an option. I know you and I have talked about it offline, but I really want to explore that. I think it's in the city's best interest to do that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions, comments?
Move for,
Wait a minute. Okay.
move for approval.
We have a motion and a second on 6C, 6A. So, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed likewise. That is approved. We will now go to 6C6B.
Resolution awarding contract for ditch maintenance to Carolina Asphalt Paving Incorporated in the estimated amount of $361,250.
Okay, Ms. Burke?
Yes, we've been having problems with our streets, and I would like to know if any of these companies that are not doing their job as well as I feel they should be doing them.
Ms. Bates, if you could explain first what this is and then address that.
This is an annual contract for a variety of trades to be involved in drainage ditches and pipes, reshaping the ditches, cutting new shoulders, seeding and mulching, and occasionally pipe replacement on an as-needed basis. When we put this bid out on the street, we had to identify, based on historical needs, units that may be involved, which is why the sum of the total of the sum came up to $361,000. However, city's budget for this year over year averages about $90,000. So that's,
These are mostly ditches on ribbon streets?
I'm sorry.
Would these be mostly ditches along ribbon streets where,
Yeah. Yes, sir.
okay, that from time to time would fill in, you'd have to retrench them,
That
basically?
is correct.
All right, one
Now, Ms.
thing-
Burke has a question.
One thing he said about cutting those curbs. When they cut the curbs, and sometimes we get complaints from citizens that they have not been cut properly, do we go back and review that and make sure that we're spending our tax dollars in a way that citizens can be satisfied?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
Well, I want to make a comment, Mr. City Manager.
keep going.
I feel that we need to do a better job of monitoring the money that we spend. We give the taxpayers, this is a business we're running. We're not running some little playhouse here. If you were a business doing the way we do some of our business, we'd get fired or be in trouble. It's just that so. And I've been saying this through the years. It is not satisfactory, Mr. City Manager, how they leave the job, and it should be more of someone inspecting. Who inspects these jobs when they say they have completed the job?
This is inspected by the city's Department of Transportation and the Streets Division in that department.
All right, need to do a better job, and Mr. Chairman, I move for approval.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion and a second on C6B. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed likewise. The next item is C6E. And Mr. Bates, or hang on a minute, let me turn there. Would you like to give a 1-minute explanation of what this bid is for?
This one is uniquely different. There's a variety of streets here in the city that have a concrete base under them and then been resurfaced year over year. So this particular project is to remove all the way, take all the base amount out and repave those streets. The listing of the streets is one of your attachments. This will also include gutters. It's impacted the drainage, and so that's why we're removing all of these streets down to the base materials.
Okay. Mr. Turner, would you like to add anything?
These are streets where the concrete underneath the asphalt has failed, and that's why they're so expensive, is there's a significant amount of heavy-duty demolition associated with the repair of the base.
Okay. Ms. Burke, it was her item. Okay, go ahead, Ms.
Yes, I wanted to ask, are these the only streets that are listed that are left, or how many more are they?
These are the only ones that, when we went through and identified problems, that showed up as problems.
So do we anticipate that there could possibly be more that we have to address?
There are other concrete-based streets, but none of them do we anticipate have problems of failing subsurface conditions.
Thank you.
Yes, Mr.
Go
Chairman,
ahead.
members of the committee and others, Mayor, while I said again to the city manager, it is important when we use the tax dollars to make sure which department is responsible for looking at the job and making sure it's satisfactory. We have too many streets that are not satisfactory. We go in and we pave, and people cannot even get into their driveways, and because they have not cut those curbs the right way. They've also not done some things around the pipes in the street. And I feel that it's important, and I know the taxpayers who travel these streets would like for us to be a little more conscious of how we do our work. So with that, Mr. Chairman, if you want a motion,
I would do what like, please.
I would move for approval.
Would you like to second and then make a comment?
Yes,
We have
second.
a motion and a second. Now, Ms. Adams would like to make a comment.
And I just want to ask, I guess, and Mr. Turner or the city manager can get with me afterwards. Right now, they're doing Polo Road per the bonds. And I don't know, maybe it's the process, but there have been over 2 weeks. They started it, but then there were a couple of weeks or more that, and I'm not saying because of the rain, because I drive by it 10, 20 times a day. I'm trying to figure out, as Ms. Burke said, Councilman Mayor Pro Tem, how do we explain this to our citizens that they see a process start and then there's nothing, but yet all of the equipment and the other things that they use to do the job are there, the piles of dirt, the piles of rocks, everything, the little cones are in the street against the curb, but there's nobody working on it and it's not raining. I need to understand that, do we contract contractors? I would understand they have other jobs going on at the same time, But did we understand that when they came into bidding on our bids to do our projects? Because if that's the case, I need to understand that, and we need to understand that as a council going forward. Again, remember we told our citizens we would be on top of this time thing. We're not just going to say we got the projects and we don't even know when they're going to start, when they're going to finish. I mean, we get updates, but that one concerns me because today was the first day I've seen that contract in quite a while.
And in general, when we issue contracts, they have a completion date and they have liquidated damages that require them to complete or pay those damages. But we'd be happy to get you some information in writing about that specific project.
And that one, and I appreciate that, Mr. Turner, but I think for the council, it would be good to just get us a copy, you can email it, of the basics of the timeline of these contractors and how does that go, because we're passing by projects now all the time, and half the time I don't see anybody working on them, so I am concerned about that. Thank you.
Certainly.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. I would like to make a brief comment. Some of this is in my ward, and this is not your typical street repaving where you have the machine that grinds off the top and then you fix the manhole covers and you pave it back down. And I did notice that it just did Northwest Boulevard, and that was probably done in I'm going to guess, a week or 2 week period. That was pretty quick.
It's in my area.
Yeah. But anyway, this is a little different. They're going to actually have to jackhammer the cement base. So I think it would be helpful to send a letter out to the folks affected on these streets, and I'll be happy to sign it or whatever that says it's going to happen. It's not going to be as quick as you think, and that, or we want to have a community meeting or whatever, because I'm guessing it's going to take weeks to chisel this stuff up and then get the base ready again. And
We'll make sure a letter goes out to the folks.
Okay.
And probably be a door hanger at their places when the contractor gets close to working in their block.
okay, thank you very much. We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Excuse me. I'm sorry.
I have another comment
Yes,
to
ma'am.
make. The question I was going to ask, how many of these, and not today, but I want to know, since we're struggling in this city with people trying to make ends meet, and we're talking about unemployment and underemployment, how many of these companies are local companies, since we're emphasizing buy and work with local people? I'd like to have a list of those.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, likewise. That is approved. That's C6E. We'll now go to C8. Secretary,
Resolution,
read that, please.
resolution authorizing the city manager to waive bonding requirements below the statutory limits.
Mr. Page, could you introduce this to us?
Yes, I'll get started on it, and this actually is a good segue into Councilmember Burke's question that she just asked about local and minority companies. As part of the review of city policies, and something's been brought to our attention recently, that the city practice has been different than state law. And as a result of the city practice we've been following, we've been making it difficult for minority and local contractors to sometimes bid on city projects. Under the state law, there's a 5% bid guarantee required for formal construction projects exceeding $500,000. Also, under a different state law, there's a performance and payment bond requirement of 100% for projects exceeding $300,000. It has been the city's practice for several years to require both a performance bond and a bid bond for any projects exceeding $100,000. And as a result, have made it difficult for some minorities and local companies to bid on projects. The item that you have before you today would grant the city manager the authority to waive the bonding requirements when it's below the statutory limit, where it's found that it's believed that such bonding requirements is a barrier to bidding by local and MWE companies, and where it is judged to have less of a risk to the city. A couple of examples and where it's come up most recently would be the spray parks or sidewalks, two of the bonding categories where we've seen the issue come up most recently.
Okay.
Happy to answer any questions. Actually, I think there are a couple of minority and local companies here today if you have questions of them as well.
Okay. Ms. Burke, it's a short item.
Yes, I was just going to say, I feel that this is what we need to be doing, and if we don't give the kind of support to help minority business, they're not going to get it anywhere. And I think this city, if this passes, we've taken a giant step in being a city that is progressive and doing the right thing.
Okay. I had a question for Mr. Garrity. Would you, I guess, waive this prior to the bids going out so people are aware of that?
Yes, it'd be done ahead of time.
It'd have to be. Okay. Ms. Adams.
Yes. Again, it goes back to whoever is reviewing our policies and ordinances against the Tier 1 documents that somehow, we're required to follow in Raleigh or the federal government. Again, when it comes to those projects or innovative ways to enhance citizen participation, whether it's minority businesses, women, or small businesses, again, we need to constantly be looking at what the state is doing, and if we're doing more to inhibit people from participating in the process than the state or the federal, then we need to fix that. And so I would ask Mr. Page and others, Mr. Brooks, and anyone else, that I would appreciate again that we diligently look at our documents and our policies to see where we're not where we need to be to allow citizens to participate. And I'm glad you found it. I'm glad we saw it during the bond process. But just think if we had figured this out when the state did theirs, that we lined up with them as well. Again, thank you.
Mr. McIntosh, you had a comment?
As a matter of practice, how often do we have to go after people for bond money for non-performance? I mean, just in general, is it often or rare?
We've not had to one time in the last 6.5 years.
Great. Okay. Good. Thank you.
Ms. Burke?
Yes, I was going to make this statement, and as we were talking, I thought about a former president of Davidson College was speaking to a group of people, and this is what he said: if it had not been people who felt that civil rights ought to be respected, then things will not happen. If you don't have a group of people that's going to do right by people, we can forget it. And these people who talk about make America great again, they don't really want it to be great. They want it to be how they want it. And if they want it to be great again, I hope they're not thinking about putting me back into slavery, because that's what some folks would do today if they had the opportunity. So we're sitting up here, some of us, and I've been serious with this city ever since I've been on this council. And I'm very pleased that I'm still strong, that I can express myself, and it does not matter whether some accept it or reject it. If somebody will not speak clear like some of us here, we'll still be in a day where minorities would never be anywhere, and women would be, you know where you women would be now. You all better
Okay.
keep that in mind. Thank you. Yes,
All right.
you go ahead.
Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second. We have a motion and a second on C8. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed likewise. That is approved. That's all the items we had on the consent. Mr. Taylor,
If I can make a comment, Mr. Chairman.
go right ahead.
I came in a little bit late. Please forgive me for that. I had some work obligations. But I had some concerns about item C4 relating to the bid. I expressed those concerns at the council level on last Monday. Since that time, I've reviewed the information that staff has presented on stopgaps and measures that are in place to address item C4.
Okay.
I've also talked with some of the partnership staff and administration, so I'm comfortable with moving forward. And I know that wasn't for my vote today in finance, but I wanted to express to the council that I am okay with the 5-year contract for the bid based on what I've heard.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I apologize, and I slept on C5. I know we've already passed the consent agenda, but when it comes to council on Monday, next week, I will not be supporting that.
Well, if it's okay, hearing no objections, can we pull C5 to talk
Please.
about? Okay. Madam Secretary, if you'll read C5.
Resolution authorizing up to $236,000 in additional permanent financing for the development of 64 units of rental housing for families to be known as Rockwood at Oliver's Crossing Apartments located in the South Ward. These items were continued from the April and May meetings of the Finance and Community Development, Housing and General Government Committees.
Which staff member, I see y'all two debating who's going to have to stand up. Who's going to come forward and give us a synopsis? Mr. Brooks, we're on C5 Oliver's Crossing, or is Rockwood at Oliver's Crossing. If you could tell us what's going on here.
Excuse me, Chairman.
It's not-
I'll start while he's pulling it.
Mr.
That was presented last month at Finance Committee and held in committee until some additional information could be provided regarding environmental review, the affordability period, and the buried materials, as well as the vent structure.
This is
So-
where we found some tires and other auto parts
Exactly.
buried fairly deep in the ground.
Correct.
And I think the developer, it's already done. It's an after-the-fact thing. And the developer has picked up some of the costs and is asking us to help on the difference. Is that correct? Now Mr. Brooks is back.
Essentially, that's what happened. This is a case where they found the buried materials at the end of the job. They had found some earlier when the job started, but as they began the process and began digging, they found far more than they had anticipated. They continued with the project, and they're now at the end of the project, and they're attempting to recoup some of the costs that they incurred as a result of it.
Do you know what the total cost was?
If I recall, it was approximately, what, 800?
In my,
Wait, excuse me. Miss,
Chair, when I
Carmen.
spoke to the attorney for Rockwood, he said the removal cost exceeded $280,000.
So you-
Page 71.
On page 71, okay, you say it exceeded 200, yeah, the last paragraph, folks. For 280, and we recovered 40,
They recovered about $40,000.
so 280, we recovered 40, gets us down to 240, and that's roughly what they're asking for.
What they're
They're asking for
asking for.
236.
Yes.
Okay. Ms. Adams has some questions or issues. I'll let you talk first.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I had some issues even when they came to us with this. I commend the developer for doing the good work of providing homes and whatever, but I have a concern as to when people develop properties and then they find that there are things under it that they didn't, for whatever reasons, when they did their research, they found out the mother or someone had nothing to do with it, but the son or brother or someone had a automotive type shop there. Well, I don't feel like, and maybe it's just me, I don't feel like the taxpayers should have to bear this burden, even though they want it for a loan and they're going to put it on the end. We're going to give home funds for it. I just feel like I don't want to start setting a precedence for other developers because, as I've said before, in the city of Winston-Salem and throughout the United States, every urban community and places are rampant with pollution, whether it's automotive parts, battery, oil drums, anything. And I don't want it to be that we start being the person to have to help support this. Again, I know it's development, I know it's tax-based, but again, it's 8 of us. This one, I just can't support because one, now the project's almost finished, and now they want some money. I just can't support it.
Okay, Mr. Montgomery and then Ms. Light.
'Cause I raised similar concerns when this came before in the sense of the placement and position of funds and where these funds come into the project. The project itself, as it's presented, regardless of our funds being a part of it, will still remain to be an affordable project. Regardless of if we support it financially, the requirements around affordability are in place, correct?
That's correct.
And as such, the question that I didn't have that is the answer is the source of funds in which the developer paid for this. Did they borrow these funds? Was it done through construction loan, which they used to help subsidize the cost of the removal? And then in the total cost of what they run into, they will not be paying anything or taking on any burden at all in terms of the cost that's there. They've recovered that cost part of the cost from the owner of the property, and then if we finance this portion of it outside of the financing, I don't see where the developer takes an additional ownership beyond out of pocket more so of paying for it. Well, I guess in the form of the loan, but would they also benefit from the forgiveness clause in our loans?
Yes, they could benefit from that also. This is merely a case where they have requested that we assist. There certainly is no obligation on the part of the city to assist. In fact, when they first made this request, it would have helped the city on its drawdown requirement with HUD with respect to the home funds. If it were not for that, don't know that you would even see the site. But certainly the responsibility for finding this and addressing it was clearly on the developer, which they took the responsibility, and they're just trying to recoup some of their costs.
Well, and that's the place I'm trying to understand in terms of with the financing. I mean, how did they pay for it? Did they pay for it out of pocket? Is it already finance dollars? Are they going to pay something off and then use our interest rate as better? That's the thing I want to see. What are they really? How are they really benefiting from using these dollars since it's done and completed and they've actually done the task? How do these funds come into play?
I don't know that we question that particular aspect of what they pay because there was some contribution on their part. So I imagine at this point it would only be staff's position that they use funds other than funds that had been previously approved by the city.
Okay, Ms. Light?
And certainly your write-up indicates that they had an environmental site assessment firm look at all of this, and they did not find it. So it seems to me if they want relief, they ought to be going back to the environmental assessment team. So I certainly I agree with some of my other colleagues that I don't see that the city has any responsibility in this.
Mr. McIntosh?
I'm going to agree. I mean, in a typical real estate transaction, there's the ability to go back after the fact if you have not gotten what you thought you paid for. So I would think that there would be potential for civil liability here on this if it was not disclosed by the seller. So, or the responsibility of whoever did the environmental testing would have to think there would be some contractual obligation there to cover things that they missed. So I would have to agree.
Let me ask the city attorney. I've been involved in several contracts where there were clauses, and they used I think the phrase bad dirt, but I have actually, and we've done it since I've been on the council, where there is a hidden item. They don't know what's underneath the ground. We actually had it over at Bowman Gray when we found out that the field house was built on a landfill. Basically, that stadium was in a ravine, and they filled it in for the field and some other things. Have we actually checked our contract to see if there is a clause in there that we're obligated to pay for unforeseen?
Did you ask have we or will we?
Have we?
No, we haven't.
I would go ahead.
I was going to say, I mean, they sued the seller of the property,
Yeah.
but they only managed to get $40,000 from her.
Yeah.
And we've also checked with Dana and some other state departments to see if there might be some financing available, and have not found anything thus far.
Okay. Because I think what Mr. Montgomery's asking, they either had to borrow the money from somebody else.
Right.
So this is just replacing one loan with another, and our interest rate may be a little less. I don't know. I would suggest we just hold it in committee. I'd like to know if in the contract what it says about hidden conditions.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
I'm
ma'am.
going to bring something up again. There was a piece of property where a person purchased the property. It's in the city, and it had trees and things all on the ground.
Yep.
When they started to build the house. I don't know why the city can't go back and find that in the minutes. And to me, I thought they were supposed to, it became a legal problem with the person who purchased it from the seller.
Yep.
And they just came down to let us know what had happened.
Mm-hmm.
So who would you say would, to me, if I bought something from Mr. McIntosh,
It'd be good.
and I found, I'm not talking about I'm talking about a personal piece of property, and I found something on it, it should be between you and I to try to get that stuff.
And it generally is, and as I mentioned before, they sued the seller of the property. They just didn't get everything they needed to from the seller.
Okay. Well, we have pulled it off of what the previous past consent, and we're just going to leave it here to see if they, I just want to know, do you, in your legal opinion, we're legally obligated to compensate them?
Oh, I'll tell you right now, we're not.
Okay. Then in that case, is there a motion to do something here?
Chairman Clark, I move that we reject C5.
Okay, we'll deny their request.
We'll deny their request.
Is there a second?
I said,
We have a motion and a second on C5 to deny the request for additional loans. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Likewise, that is approved. Are there any other consent items we may have overlooked? Okay, we will now go to the general, and by the way, we're moving along nicely. There are 5 items on the, well, one of them's the budget, so we will start with G1.
Item G1, resolution authorizing the City of Winston-Salem to participate in the submission of a Choice Neighborhoods Planning Grant with the Housing Authority of Winston-Salem.
Mr. Brooks, if you'll introduce this to us.
Mayor, Chairman Clark, members of the committee, this item is a request for the City of Winston-Salem to participate in the submission of a Choice Neighborhood Implementation Grant from with the Housing Authority of Winston-Salem. As you know, they received a $500,000 implementation grant. They are now at that point where they are ready to submit an application for the grant for implementing the project, and they have requested that the city be a co-applicant on the application. So with this, there are actually 3 requests that they have made from the city. First is a commitment from the city to be a co-applicant on the submission, and that would require that the city serve as a co-applicant in the event that the lead is not the applicant. And of course, we know that lead is the Housing Authority, and they are fully vested in this process. The second would be that the city serve as the neighborhood lead. There are 3 areas in the grant that are very unique to the project. One is that addresses housing, which the Housing Authority would be the lead. The other is the people aspect, and the third is the neighborhoods. And the Housing Authority is requesting the city serve as the neighborhood lead, which would be to work with the public and private investment in the area. So that's the second request. The third request would be for the city to make a commitment of $4.5 million over the 6-year period of the grant. These funds would be used in a category that's called critical community improvement category. And in that particular category, the Housing Authority can actually receive several points towards the overall point system for the grant. And you're able to use a combination of various sources of money as opposed to one category which would have been using federal dollars, which would have required that we make a substantial commitment of our existing community development block grant funds over the period of the loan, which would have all but used all of the CDBG allocation. In this particular category, you can use both federal and non-federal funds. So we believe this would be the best area to use. And in this particular area, the possible uses of the funds would be as listed here: financing for commercial and economic development, neighborhood business facade improvement, neighborhood broadband, revolving loan funds, streetscape, improved housing in the surrounding area, and the acquisition of land for new parks, community gardens, or other types of community facilities. Because in addition to the renovation of the Cleveland Home projects, the footprint of the Choice Neighborhood Grant is pretty extensive, and the goal of the grant is to improve not only the Cleveland Avenue homes as we know it today, but also to encourage additional development in the surrounding area. And these are the funds that could be used to help spur that along. So they are requesting that the city participate in those 3 areas.
Okay.
Mr. Woods would have been here this afternoon. It's my understanding at the last minute he had a family sickness that caused him not to be able to be here, so I'll try to attempt to respond to your question.
Okay, we have a number of hands up. Ms. Adams, I'll start with you.
Yes, I think this is great. Again, for me, it's reminiscent of when we transformed with Hope 6 back in the 90s and the early 2000s. I think it's great. I think, that the Housing Authority and staff and others are seeking this. But I'd also, and I will support it, but I'd like to see more details to it. When we say that from a variety of resources or sources, the money, and it not being committed in future budget years, and I'd like to see where we would pull these sources for the money from to support this. And I'd also like to see more detail to the three requests that they've asked us for. I know you have it for the third one, but I'd like to see more examples of what we're talking about. Thanks.
Okay, Mr. Montgomery.
Yes, one, have consistently and continue to be fully supportive of the Housing Authority and their master plan from Cleveland Avenue master plan that goes from MLK all the way back into Cleveland Avenue homes. In reference to the request today, there are a couple questions and concerns that I do have that have not totally been addressed at the time. And those are connected to one in the area of the city acting as neighborhood lead. The actions in which are being requested of the city in reference to that around the economic and recruitment components of business and commercial sides of what I read in this, I ask the question of whether or not we are the best suited to actually conduct those actions.
From the conversations that we as staff had with the Housing Authority, they believed of the three areas, this would have been the area that they believe the city would be the best fit.
And if that is the case, the thing that I would say is that if in fact we join in and we are the neighborhood lead, then that will be some requirements on our end to do some things, because I'm not fully certain, just in looking at other things, whether or not we have all the skills in-house to really recruit and do some of that on the side of some of the corporate commercial business, well, some of the commercial components that they're going to be looking for within the project. And so when we move towards that, and if we move in that direction of being neighborhood lead, that I think it'd be incumbent upon the city to be in engagement with others in reference to that is successful.
I would agree with you, and again, in conversations with the Housing Authority and in looking at their role as housing lead, and from the conversations they had with the people lead, the lead agent would not be the one that's solely responsible for implementing all of the activities. It would be the responsibility of that lead agent to get participants and to encourage others and to form partnerships and relationships with others that are in that particular area to help assist with getting that work done. So I would wholeheartedly agree, and we'll see to that.
And then the second component that I want some clarity on is in reference to the category in which the dollars, the $4.5 million that the city could potentially commit to doing in support of the project. It's a very, very broad array of how these funds can be used. And for me, the first step is making sure, in terms of the housing parts, are able to be put in place, and then being able to see how we work to do the other pieces. And so I wonder, is that the best use of city funds? And I know in terms of the Housing Authority, because they requested it in that fund, they believe that's the best place for the use of those funds. But it's very, very broad, and some of the programs, some of the pieces that would be done there, if city funds are going into that, how engaged would the city be in those programs and some of those functions that are there if it's not housing? We know if we're supporting the housing piece, what that looks like, what that's going to produce. But in this area, I think we don't really know what that could look like.
And we had some preliminary conversations about that, and our thought on that was that there are future activities that the city will probably be engaged in that area, such as housing improvement through the TURN program or other programs, road infrastructure improvements, some park improvements that we're currently looking at in one of the areas. So all of those future types of activities that would ordinarily be on the city's plate would be included as a contribution towards that $4.6 million. that, and we would certainly be an integral part of that. It would not be where we are relying solely on the housing authority, absent of some deep city participation and involvement in how those activities and funds would be utilized.
And then the third and final component is around case management for individuals who are residents within the properties and potentially displaced in the process. I know that they sent a letter in reference to saying that they're required to engage individuals around case management services. And I want everybody to know there's a difference between full case management and case management services. Individuals who receive case management services are very light touch in terms of what they engage. Individuals who receive full case management are actually enrolled and followed through with. And the question that I had within this process was that individuals are able to receive full case management and not simply case management services. And I know here the language says case management services.
And further conversations with the Housing Authority, of course, we know that's not something that they currently engage in themselves, but they are fully committed to not only providing that through their partners and other collaborations, but there are some of those services are touched on with the relocation requirements that are provided by the federal government with respect to, in addition to finding decent, affordable replacement housing, they have to look at the needs of the applicants that are being relocated and provide some type of services to address the health and overall general welfare of those participants. But we'll certainly make certain that a clear understanding of case management before and after is included in any type of agreement.
And for me, that's a linchpin, and I won't be, as much as I support House Authority and support the things that come through, until I'm clear on that, I won't be able to support anything that comes to council, because it can potentially have an adverse impact on community when we do vouchers, and individuals who receive vouchers have not properly been case managed before they leave communities and enter into other communities in that process. And I think as a community, we have a responsibility not just to be light touch with individuals and give them stuff and say, yes, we've addressed it and check the box, because there's a lot of ways that you can say you did and check certain boxes in process and address health and welfare of individuals. But when you receive that full case management, it's more difficult to get around some of those pieces. And so for me, I think that's important for our entire community, that if we're supporting that, that's something that's dealt with on the front end. And so I look forward to seeing what those items are.
We'll speak with them and try to get a much clearer understanding and some type of written agreement between now and Monday.
Okay. Ms. Burke?
I was going to say, the mayor can speak first, then I'll speak.
Okay. Mr. Mayor?
Well, thank you. I certainly agree with Councilmember Adams. The successes we had with Hope 6 and Kimberly Park and Happy Hill shows that a comprehensive approach like that is about the only way you can really address systemic problems within a major neighborhood like Cleveland Avenue. We also, in support of what Councilmember Montgomery is saying, we also learn from those projects what you've got to do and not do, and hopefully we've learned from those. To the citizens, seeing the city being asked for $4.6 million is a big bite. However, it's over a 6-year period. Assuming the grant is maybe awarded later this year or early next year, it's going to be 2017 before the city's first payments or projects would have to be come in. It's a little over $700,000 a year for 6 years. We'll have an opportunity during that same period. We've been already talking about a potential new bond issue where we could add some of the infrastructure pieces of that to a bond. So I think it's doable from the city's budget standpoint. Yet on the other hand, I think has the potential to be tremendously impactful in our efforts to address poverty, housing conditions, and really just creating a stronger core area that will hopefully grow and spread out through there. So I'll be very supportive of this, and I think the Housing Authority should be commended. They've already received the planning grant. Mr. Woods has testified at Congress on this program, so hopefully we're in a good position to be successful.
Okay. Ms. Burke?
Thank you. I wanted you to speak, the ones that you have spoken. I agree with what you have said. Mr. Woods has kept a very close communication with me concerning this matter. And I'm sure you would have some questions. Whenever you say lead, you want to know by definition, lead, what position it puts us in. When we look at that area up there, and we worked hard with Hope 6, and it passed, when you look at the area, the city has spent an awful lot of money on Liberty Street. And the money we have spent, we're really not getting the benefit, and we're getting ready to put some money, our bond money, with the Fairview Gathering at the Park. We're getting ready to do all the work up there. Those are some more tax dollars. Looking at the tax dollars we spent, looking at the ones we're getting ready to spend, that area is a challenge. We're not going to be able to get people to come on Liberty Street and benefit from the money that we have spent. And then when we go back and look at the housing that we did over there, the individual housing, there are residents staying there, but they're really not enjoying themselves because the area does not lend itself to some of the wholesome things you like to do when you're in your own yard and enjoying yourself. So this particular project, but to look different in that area, this neighborhood choice concept is what we need to do. It's just that we need to have clearly defined what we think their role is as housing. Because I don't feel that we need to be left with all of this responsibility.
Absolutely.
And it wouldn't be fair to taxpayers.
One more comment. I agree with all the comments that have been made. Again, as Councilmember Burke and the mayor said, I was on the Housing Authority Board back in the 90s. I was either chair, I think I might have even been chair. And we had to get a great understanding by visiting all of these different Hope 6 projects all over the country as to how we could have a successful project, because we did see some of the ones that did not make it. I think this is great. Again, I support it, but I just need to see some more level to the detail on the 3 requests and what they really mean, and whether that's staff or the mayor, I don't care, but we need to have more detail on this. We want this to be a success, but we want to go in it, like we said, lessons learned from Hope 6, and we did learn some lessons that we just need to make sure to help Councilmember Montgomery. Cleveland is in his ward. It's in your Councilmember Mayor Pro Tem's ward. We just need to make sure that it is and it has the opportunity to be successful. We had a lot of people, a lot of task groups that brought information to us that we had not thought about. We made sure we involved the residents that lived in Kimberly Park. It was the first one. We made some bad mistakes when it came to the moving the residents out, and we promised them some things that didn't happen the way it should have. Well, I'm like Ms. Berg now, they got rid of me, but my main thing was that we have to give what we say we're going to do, and the only way we can do that, Councilmember Clark, is we've got to have a serious, deep dive understanding of the details.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you. Mr. Acosta, you have anything? No. Ms. Light?
Just really as a reiteration of what has been said, that I'm going to have more details on this. I think it's wonderful, but I need to know exactly what we're committing to.
Okay.
So I would hope that Mr. Woods would be able to provide us with a more detailed explanation.
Let me ask the staff. They don't have this yet. They're applying for it. They're simply asking us to apply. Will this come back again when the actual contracts are ready, assuming they get it? Because what I'm hearing is a lack of specificity. But I don't know if you do that this far in advance when you don't even have the project.
Yes, and we've seen a copy of the plan, and the plan itself, in my opinion, doesn't provide a lot of detailed type information. And most certainly we can get you all copies of the plans or a summary in each section of what the housing, the people, and the lead.
What I'm asking, they're asking for several commitments. Are we assuming they get the grant? And everyone seems to think that's a given, but you never know. Will we get a second look in 2017 on the actual contract between us and the Housing Authority concerning, like Ms. Montgomery was asking about displacement? Will we see? I think it's asking a lot between now and Monday night to put a lot of meat on the bones on these issues. I hear the need for it, but can we pass a general, yes, we like the project, but then get a second look? What I'm hearing is everybody wants to see what the details are. And I don't even know if they've been done that far because they not sure what they're going to get the money and what exactly they're going to do yet.
I would agree in some respect, and my experience with past grants would be that there would probably be an opportunity to review the grant again and make some slight adjustments. But whatever is in the grant submission is what they would be held accountable for. And I don't know, for instance, if you would have an opportunity to come back and make any more stringent types of requirements than what may already be in there when it's submitted.
Okay, next question, and I'll get to some others here. Is there a time sensitivity to this?
Yes.
Okay.
They have to submit
due sometime in June.
Yeah,
so,
in June.
okay, between now and Monday, you've got to get a lot of specificity on a piece of paper. That's what I'm hearing.
Look at some examples.
Wait, let him answer that.
I think the intent, Chairman Clark, and you're correct. At this point, and they've actually been here 3 times to discuss the project, and they'll be back on Monday. But the intent was much more general than the specifics that you're looking for now. Just we're interested, we'll make these loose commitments, but before we don't know where the money is going to come from right now.
Yeah.
But sometime over the next 6 years, we'll identify funds, whether it be GO bonds, whether it be part of just normal operations within those areas, that we'll find what those funding sources are going to be. But I think at this point, what we're looking for was a more, and I think Councilmember Montgomery has some specific points, such as the full services that are provided to them that we can actually talk to them about now, as far as all they have is a conceptual. They have an idea of, we're going to do a $100 million project. Here's what we look for from you all. Let's talk in the future, assuming we get this grant approved in September. So after that step and assuming it gets approved, then they would start putting pencil to paper to figure out exactly what the costs are and what the needs are from the city. And you all be involved in that entire process going on to figure out exactly what our commitments would be on the cost. So I think the cost piece, we don't know what they are yet because they don't know what they are yet and probably have no real idea.
Yeah.
On the...
For example, they haven't put together a detailed list of what they mean by relocation services.
No.
Well, the relocation services, yes, because they are mandated services by the federal government.
So you could get us those?
We can get you those.
Okay.
But the other services would probably at this point not be able to get you the details.
Okay. Ms. Burke, you had a comment?
In listening to the conversations we're having, we know with the Housing Authority that the mayor is the one who they directly report. But it seems like it needs to be a better line of communication with the project like this. Because I know some things because he has extended that courtesy because it's in the ward. Mm-hmm. But I do believe there needs to be more communication with the individual elected officials. We were talking about the Hope 6. It may not have been the best, but when we got to the Hope 6 in Washington and sat around the table with the HUD people, we were recognized as being a progressive city. We had brought together a lot of the folks. And the thing that I'm concerned about, too, when you talk about relocation people, we used to spell that out. How are we going to relocate these citizens? We just can't talk about going into their area and not having that kind of communication, even though it's not where you have to be exact right now. But there ought to have been more, and we really don't know. And, Mr. Chairman, it's a possibility Mr. Woods may have been talking to the residents in the area. Yes. Mr. Brooks and I was in a conversation today because someone had stated that their letter had been sent telling the folks in the Cleveland Public Housing they were going to be relocated. So Mr. Brooks called Mr. Woods, and he talked that we haven't sent a letter out like that, which means we need to do they need to be doing a better job with communicating. I want the project to work, and I want us to move forward. But I want HUD needs to know that we elected officials are being communicated with concerning this. And Mayor, I don't want to put you on the spot, but have you had any dealings with the HUD people about this particular neighborhood choice?
Not specifically about this particular project, but Mr. Woods has kept me informed, as has you, I think, What I would suggest, Mr. Chairman, this is as Mr. Page pointed out, this is a process. We're simply being asked to indicate our willingness to be a partner in this at the tune of 4.5, realizing there are a lot of unanswered questions there. So what I would suggest that we do, we can certainly get as much information as we can before Monday, but what I'd also suggest is we tweak the resolution that would give the council a little more comfort in terms of saying we approve our participation subject to da-da-da-da-da. That would give us more flexibility going forward.
Okay.
That way we can hit things. That sound good?
Mr. Montgomery, then I go to Ms. Montgomery.
That's,
I'm McIntosh, he's Montgomery.
Whatever.
They do look alike. I can
So
They both have a mustache.
I'm looking at this as like a letter of intent.
Yeah.
They're not bound to do a whole lot. We're not bound to do a whole lot. We're starting to dance, and as we go forward with the dance, we're going to define terms. And as long as we aren't subjecting ourselves to concrete commitments here of exactly how we're going to do things, I think this is us saying we want to go do this dance. We want to go with you to the ball, but we're going to have to figure some things out as we move along. So I'm comfortable to that extent.
Okay, Ms. Light.
just a comment about, once again, even though we have asked to be informed of some things more than a week before something's due, we need to reiterate that. It would have been nice to have a little bit more time to look at details. So just a reminder that we do need some information earlier, if possible.
Okay, I need to move on to some other things. So, Ms. Montgomery, I'll let you say a word, then I'm going to make a recommendation.
Yeah, it just goes to the point. One, I feel comfortable moving forward with the item, but except for the comment I made, and which may be selfish, but it's one in the sense that this is something that can be done up front and something that I would like to be included in the grant, because if they are bound by this, by HUD guidelines and by what they submit to them, it may be something that they can't back away from here. And I know in other conversations with HUD, with Housing Authority and other things, there was times where we wanted them to do certain things that were talked about but didn't actually happen. And so for this particular piece, which is very, very vital around the case management piece, and I give an example, that when there have been some communities in which we've seen across the country in which communities are revitalized, their displacement that takes place, and there is the lack of full service case management. And what you do is, in effect, when people are displaced, communities are broken, and communities create opportunities within themselves to resolve issues. And when you dismantle those neighborhoods and displace people, you have removed some of the opportunities in neighborhoods that suppress issues before we have to call police or before anything is really problematic. And what full services case management helps to do is it helps to make sure that individuals have those skill sets moving into other neighborhoods and other communities as they're engaging with other people, and no longer have some of the safeguards that they would have in the neighborhood that they've been able to build over many, many years. Miss So-and-so is not in the neighborhood to come out on the front porch and tell somebody that they're going to call their mother or call their father or something like that to resolve an issue. And when you do that, no matter the other services that you provide, those pieces are very, very critical. And when you don't allow for that function to happen, it's sometimes, and it has been seen in other communities, have adverse impacts in other parts of the community. And I think we have to be, because it's beneficial to everybody to do that, and I think we should be intentional up front on that.
Okay. I'm going to recommend that we make a motion to move this forward without recommendation and further direct the staff to provide any specifics that they can and to tweak the language so that it states in here that both parties understand that there are still unknowns that need to be resolved and whatever. How does that sound? We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed likewise? Yes,
and
ma'am.
Mr. Chairman, I would just like
One abstention. Go
for
ahead.
us to keep in mind, it's a broken area. It is broken. And in order to bring it in the kind of relationship with people communicating and people wanting to go in the area, it has to be fixed.
Thank you. Something crossed my mind while we were talking about this. It's somewhat related, but somewhat not. We received a letter from Mr. Coe stating that he did not need the loan that we were going to give him on the Pepper building.
Correct.
I think we need to make that as a formal motion through the council that is rescinded, because if I remember correctly, whatever bucket of money that came out of, that bucket didn't have much water left after that loan. So I'd like to, if we could formally do that, because that might be one of the buckets that we dip in for this. Yes, ma'am.
I move that we rescind Mr. Cole's request.
Can we do that without it being?
Why don't we just draft a resolution to put it on the agenda?
Yeah, if I may ask
Monday.
staff to put that in there as a chairman's prerogative. Okay,
No moss on that stone.
For Monday.
for Monday night. Okay, we will now go to G2.
Item G2, information regarding a request for assistance from the Housing Authority of Winston-Salem for the redevelopment of New Hope Manor Apartments.
Can you introduce this one?
Yes, I can. And this is an item just to make you aware that we intend to bring back to council a resolution that would grant assistance to the Housing Authority to provide financial assistance to acquire, demolish, and rehab New Hope Manor Apartments, which is formerly Burke Village Apartments. Currently, in anticipation of the Choice Neighborhood Grant Award, the Housing Authority, they are trying to be proactive and move forward in this particular area, and they are working with the owners and a bank that has a mortgage against the property, and they believe they can get this property at a much favorable rate than what's owed, so they want to move with immediate haste in doing so, and they're requesting assistance from the city to the tune of $1.7 million that would permit them to acquire, demolish, and rehab the property, and a portion of the property would be, not all of the property would be demolished, but if you're familiar with the area, it would be that part of the property that's closest to the park area that the city is in the process of doing some work in currently. So we anticipate bringing an item back. The details on this hadn't been worked out either, so we don't know where the funds would come from to do this, but we wanted to make you aware, especially at the same time the Choice Neighborhoods application is being presented, that there is this other request from Halls for the $1.7 million to assist with this particular project too.
Okay, Ms. Burke, you had your hand up.
I was going to say all of us were sitting on this council when an individual came and purchased a Burke Village. And that person was committed to make things work. And I've asked Mr. Brooks to give to me how much money we've actually put into the new name, New Hope Manor, who are the owners of New Hope Manor. Because when we talk about these federal dollars, they're our dollars also. And to see it, it's like throwing money, just throwing money somewhere as if though it's not. And I think, Mr. Chairman, as Chairman of this Finance Committee, this is a serious something. I'm not saying that we are not going to do this, but I think we need to be more careful with our money when we give it to individuals who's made commitments as what they're going to do with the funding. And so before Monday, I would like to know the question that I have. And I know the park is up there. We're spending tax dollars, want to get that presentable. But I think we're extending ourselves.
Okay. Ms. Adams, you have something?
Yes, I was just going to request staff that when you bring us things like the G1 and G2, it would be great to have some visuals, such as a map as to how it fits to what they've already done in the Cleveland and the East Winston area, in that area, Liberty Street, to be able to see where Hope Manor, New Hope Manor is. Because I know, Mayor Pro Tem knows, Councilmember Taylor, Councilmember Montgomery, they know, but the rest of them may not know. So we need to have that available for us to be able to look at.
We'll have maps for you.
Yeah, this is just for information. This is the
Yes,
first.
just for information.
Some of the questions I had, and they've been mentioned previously, I'd like to know kind of what's the total cost of the project, what percent's being torn down, because if we're tearing something down, all we're buying is land. And the value of that land is what the land's worth minus what it costs to tear down what's on it. I mentioned that in that 1.5 sounded awfully high to pay for some land if it's just land we're buying. So I would like, again, more information. Sounds like we'll get it when it comes back through the next time.
Yes.
Including the total cost of the project.
Very good.
So this is just for information only. Any other comments? We appreciate that first pass. The next one, G3, please.
Item G3, resolution approving various lease agreements and estoppels necessary to effectuate the sale of the Downtown Marriott and Embassy Suites hotels to Hospitality Ventures Management Group.
Mr. Rao, do you want to tell us, this is more of a technical type thing, but go ahead and fill us in.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon. In 2004, the City Council entered into a memorandum of understanding with Noble Investment Group regarding the acquisition of the Adams Mark Hotel. As part of that memorandum of understanding, the city invested $10 million in acquiring the 38,000 square feet of the meeting space on the lower level of what's now the Embassy Suites and the Grand Pavilion Ballroom. Under the lease agreement for that space, the current Noble pays the city $600,000 per year in a lease payment that then covers the debt that the city incurred to acquire the space. Recently, Noble has entered into negotiations with Hospitality Ventures Management Group to sell the two downtown hotels, the Marriott and the Embassy Suites, and to transfer assignment of the management agreement for the convention center to Hospitality Ventures Management Group. The action item before you today requests approval of the various lease agreements that would help effectuate the sale of the hotels. The assignment of the qualified management agreement for the convention center is scheduled to go to the Public Assembly Facilities Commission next Monday for their consideration and approval. With us today is Richard Jones, the Senior Vice President and Chief Operating Officer for Hospitality Ventures Management Group, and Kevin Robert, who's over acquisitions with Hospitality Ventures Management Group, and then Roy Krupp, who's Senior Vice President for Asset Management with Noble Investment Group. Just very briefly, a little bit of background about Hospitality Ventures Management Group. That company was formed in 2001, and they currently operate 30 full-service, select service, extended stay, branded, and independent properties and resorts in 14 states. They currently own the Airport Marriott in Greensboro. So they're here today to answer questions you may have.
Okay. Mr. Jones, if you'd like to come up and say a few words, you certainly can. If you give your name and address for the record, please.
Absolutely. Richard Jones. My address is 140 Mirawood Lane in Alpharetta, Georgia. So thank you. Appreciate the opportunity to be here and get a chance to meet everybody. As Mr. Rao said, Hospitality Ventures is in negotiations with Noble Investment Group. We are a hotel owner and operator. We operate throughout the country, primarily Marriott, Hilton, and Hyatt branded hotels. So we're in the hospitality business. That's really all that we do. We're very excited about the opportunity to expand our presence in North Carolina. We have a Residence Inn by Marriott in Charlotte, and we did acquire the Airport Marriott at Greensboro back in December of 2014. We're in the final phases of an extensive guest room renovation and upgrade of that hotel, and that's exactly what we're proposing to do here as well. We would come in and acquire the hotels. We would operate them and make a pretty significant investment in improving them and improving the hotel inventory here in Winston-Salem.
Mr. Rao, we're basically taking the contracts we have with the current owner and simply transferring them, so to speak, to the new one.
Assigning them, yes.
Assigning them. Yes, Mr. Montgomery, you have a question, comment?
Yes, there's a question. I understand the simplicity of the legal aspect, but this is actually a big deal when it comes to management of convention centers. And that's what I want to be clear on in reference to that part of the contract and understanding what implications there are for us in the local community when it comes to that management. Does that mean people changes within management here on the ground locally? What opportunities do we gain as a community? What do you all bring to the table in relationships, opportunities for conventions and others that we have that we don't have in the community now?
Sure. So we don't anticipate any major changes. We've got a pretty good understanding of the working relationship that exists today in the complex between the hotels and the convention center. Obviously, we have we'll have made a very big investment in Winston-Salem, and it's going to be our number one mission is to go ahead and promote Winston-Salem as a destination and attract as much business to the convention center and to downtown as possible. We collectively have a lot of experience managing event facilities, convention centers, meeting spaces. We have hundreds and hundreds of thousands of space under management, hundreds of thousands of square feet of space under management right now. But, the root of your question, if we just finished up an assignment, the property sold. It was a similar situation. It was a event center and a exposition center in suburban Chicago. But, I think what really the root of your question is, will there be changes? We don't anticipate there to be, major changes. We've gotten, a good understanding of what the model is today and what's working, and, our goal is to bring our expertise and help, enhance it, but there's not going to be any major changes with us coming in, walking in the door.
Ms. Burke? Excuse me, go ahead.
And this is to staff, and this is nothing in slight to you all in management who are coming in. I would have preferred a larger time frame of understanding with this type of transition when it means the implications for the convention center and the sale and what that means for us as a local community. I find it just challenging. I know from a legal standpoint what we're transitioning, that's very simple, but I think there are broader implications within this process of management and what comes to the table. And so with that, I'll be abstaining from this action today.
Okay. Ms. Burke?
Yes, I want you to enjoy our city. I sit on the TDA,
Yes.
Tourism Development Authority, and I'm the best marketed person for my But I also have some of the same concerns. And I had asked the city to, and this doesn't affect you, it affects the city manager who he had asked to do this. I said, what is the taxpayers' gain from the sale of the hotel property? I think taxpayers need to know this. And I say, how will the city benefit from keeping the properties that are leased to the hotel? These are questions because I go back a long way in all of this business transaction. I know all about it. And those who may not have been around, they have probably read about some things. But the real detailed things and how taxpayers' dollars have been invested, this is a responsibility that I feel when you bring a project like this to us, there's some answers. Of course, we think about job opportunities. What's going to happen to me if somebody purchased a hotel? So who's going to answer those questions, Mr.
Start.
Yes, Councilmember Burke, I have provided some information in response to those questions. In terms of what is the taxpayers' gain from the sale of the hotel properties, as Mr. Jones indicated, the hotel the new owners have stated their intention to invest in major renovations to the hotel, so we would hope that would increase the tax base, have an impact on the tax base. But even beyond that, that new investment, coupled with the investment the city is making in the convention center, the $18.5 million, we hope it will just enhance the Twin City Quarter, excuse me, and attract more conferences, more events, which is the intent of the renovations of the convention center, and ultimately would reduce the city subsidy for the convention center, which is funded out of taxpayer dollars. And so we do, expect and hope that there will be that kind of relief.
Okay. You keep going.
And the taxpayers are now saying we are now going to sell another one of our piece of properties. And is this good for us to do?
Well, we're not selling the convention center.
No, I'm talking about this.
And as far as the meeting space and the Grand Pavilion Ballroom, the city will continue to own that space. We do have a good bit of debt still outstanding on that space, about $6.9 million. And so by transferring the lease agreement from Noble to the new owners, basically we'll continue to receive the $600,000 a year in annual lease payment, which is used to pay off the debt. So there is no need for the city to identify other revenue sources like tax dollars to retire that debt. It will come strictly from the lease payments from the new owner.
Mr. Chairman, when we do get ready to vote, I'm just going to abstain because I think this is a big business deal we're talking about. And I want to have an opportunity to have a little more conversation with Mr. Rao.
Okay. Ms. Adams?
Yes. I think one of the hotels, maybe both might be in my ward, I'm not sure, and the convention center. I agree. I've been here all my life. I remember when we built the Benton. I remember seeing all of the rehab that has gone through. I remember the hotels when they were built, when the Robert E. Lee was torn down, and it was a big thing to see something, a big hotel go down like that. And then we had the Embassy, the Marriott, and all the other hotels, the Stopers, and everything that came with it. There was some bad blood during all of this time, too, every time this would happen in the city, because the taxpayers didn't feel like they were fully educated and given information at a level that they understand as to why we were doing these things. I see the same thing with this, and I have to say, I'm with my other council members, Mr. Garrity, and staff, I have a concern that maybe I missed something, but I don't even remember anybody telling me about this, you know. So, and I would always think, again, as Councilmember Pro Tem would say, you need to let a council member know when things are getting ready to be shifted or changes in their district or wards. You need to do that, because we're the ones that will have to really ultimately answer to the taxpayers and our constituents. So with this, I would like to see us also communicate this to the community. I think right now we got a marketing department. We need to create something for the newspaper, and it has nothing against my fellow journalists back there. We appreciate you. But I constantly tell everyone, the story you tell is the story, your story. So we need to tell the story, and our citizens, we got all these other ads in the papers. When we do this, or this was coming, we should have done a better job at communicating to the public. And again, because I don't know anything about it, I will be abstaining as well.
Mr. Mayor, and then...
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I certainly understand what our council members are saying there. I just wanted to reiterate that when we did the original arrangement back in 2004, it was an innovative way of the city engaging in a partnership with the private sector to accomplish a very difficult management. We know convention centers typically lose money. So by doing this arrangement, we were able to reduce the city's operating losses, and it's been a very positive thing. This action that we're considering today simply carries that arrangement on. The benefit, however, is that, as has been pointing out, the city's getting ready to spend $18.5 million on the convention center, so the two hotels coming online with new upgrades certainly is complementary to that investment and supports our investment. So I think we can make a very strong case to the citizens after we get comfortable with that, is that, one, there's no really changes in the original concept that was done in 2004, which has worked very well. And then secondly, we will get a very nice upgrade to the two properties that support the convention center that we're making major investments in right now. But I certainly understand the questions that we need to answer now.
I believe, Mr. Taylor, did you have your hand up on this?
Yeah, I did. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess my first question is to Attorney Carmen or one of the staff members. I've heard us talk about the currently assigned contract, so my question is, are there any differences in the currently assigned contract to Noble Investment Group and the one that we're intending to transfer to Hospitality Ventures?
In terms of the lease agreement, there will be no changes. It's strictly an assignment of that agreement to the borrower, and also some statements that the current management group or lessee is not in breach or violation of the lease agreement. In terms of the management agreement, I've not seen the assignment for that yet. That original management agreement was approved by the Public Assembly's Facilities Commission, but as I understand it, once that assignment has been prepared, it's just merely changes in terms of the name and a codification of some of the procedures that have been used over the years that never made its way into the document.
For my support, when the time comes, I'd like to know exactly what changes there will be. I mean, it's good that we say there will be no changes, but I need to see it all so we can be as direct as possible. My second question, thank you, sir, for coming down and speaking with us, and I'm definitely excited about having you in our city. As I've always been, and I'm sure some of my colleagues as well, I've always been concerned with employees who live, work, and relax in the city. Whether we're talking about, Bowman Gray, whether we're talking about the Coliseum, at the front of my mind has always been the employees who work in this city. My question directly to you, if we move forward with this agreement, What does that mean for the current employees that you have working in your organization? Will you need additional employees? Will everybody be brought on? Will some people have to let go? That's important for me to know that.
So generally speaking, whenever this kind of transition takes place, the employees, the line level employees are automatically, they carry on, and we try to, keep everybody. The hotel is still operating. We still have guests to take care of. We don't show up with a bus of new employees to come in and take over a hotel. We're at a stage we haven't had an opportunity to meet the leadership team of the hotel. We're kind of on the cusp of that. So, I can't say absolutely that every single management position, will stay, but everybody has the opportunity. The managers will go through an interview process. The housekeepers, the servers, the front desk staff, everybody will be offered their job at their current rate of pay, no changes. There will be no reduction in staff. There will be none of that. Everybody will be retained.
You said exactly what I needed you to say.
Mr. Jones, I could gather the assignment of these two contracts is part of the negotiation and will be a requirement before closing.
It is.
Or part of closing.
Yes, it's definitely a requirement for closing. It's more of a lender requirement and, legal for the transaction.
Okay.
So, yeah.
I'm hearing some people have questions. How time sensitive are you?
We're pretty time sensitive. It's on a, it's obviously there's a lot of pieces that have to come together, and, all the parties.
We're not going to meet in the month of July. Do
Right.
you need an answer before August the 1st?
That would definitely be our preference.
Okay. Let the chair make a comment, if I may. I have a good friend that's in the hospitality business in this town, and he described both these hotels as tired. Tired. I would use the word rundown, tired. This is a transaction between two private parties. We don't own anything here. Well, what we own, we're going to continue to own. We don't own the hotels. This is great news that someone's willing to come into this community and pour some money into these two buildings. But I'm concerned that the council is doing its best to kill it, quite frankly. It is not our job to get involved in a private transaction between two people. But I'm going to tell you, if we spend $18 million renovating the convention center and we do nothing with the hotels, we've wasted $18 million. And if we don't do something here today, we're going to kill this deal, because we're not meeting again to the second Monday, this committee, until the second Monday in August.
I do not disagree at all with the statement that welcome investment in our community is one that I don't think this council has very much pushed down. And so I don't think that's the question. I think the challenge here is not with those who are coming today and seeking to do a deal. It's in reference to staff and which individuals have been able to understand what this means. And beyond the two hotels, there's also implications on the convention center, which we are investing $18 million, which is a community asset and does need to be understood by the entire community on what that means for everyone in the community and how that's managed and what that means for the community as a whole. And so I hope that that is not construed in a way in which anyone on this council is attempting to stand in the way of investment in community. And in fact, in 2004, to ensure that a process could happen, the city stepped in and helped private individuals to make the process work. So we have assisted in private people doing certain things. And so this isn't anybody stepping in the way, but actually just wanting to understand on behalf of the community what's happening and what's going on. And I think that some of this information that we can get in advance, but it would have been one of those courtesies that farther enough in advance when communications began around potential sale and what's happening, that somebody, at least on this committee, had some opportunity to be engaged in that process, especially even the council member in the area wasn't even a part of the convention center and talking about the management of that. I think those are important things in that we're endowed with the responsibility to know if you're investing $18 million and the management is changing, you need to know what that means for your community. I think that's important.
Well, all I can tell you is I heard 3 abstentions, which means there's no second to the motion. You had a comment?
My question was more towards staff and the financial obligation.
He had his hand
up. What was the term of the original loan, 2004? Was it a 20-year amortization?
I believe it's 30.
20. Probably 20. Okay. And was it fully amortized? Are they paying principal and interest on it, or just interest only? Do we know? My question goes to how much time is left on about 10 years. Okay, so we've gone 12 years. We've got about 10 years left, so it's right around 20-ish. Okay, and then at that point, will be paid off on both the principal and on all remaining interest.
We have,
Thank you.
wait a minute, Ms. Burke had her hand up, then I'll go to Mr. Gary.
Thank you. Mr. Jackson, I do want to enjoy this city. In this city, we had a former city manager that liked me every now and then to give a short lesson. We have a city manager council form of government. It takes 5 votes for anything to happen in this city. And the mayor will vote only when it is a tie. Now, he goes out and he does a good job in securing business to come. I'm sitting here longer than any of them. And I have been from the very first day we talked about business. I am for business. This chairman cannot think for me. I was thinking before he was even thought of. And I want him to understand that. And I want you to understand. When we abstain, it doesn't mean that we're not for it. You can go back and research our minutes and see we abstain on many occasions. But we vote for what when we get down to it. We're just merely saying we needed more information.
Mm-hmm.
We need to make the taxpayer a little more aware of what's going on because it is their dollars. I have never stood in the way of progress. And I'm not going to start now. But there were just some things that was not done that we felt should have been done. And you can respect that, I'm sure.
I can respect that. I understand that. If there's anything I can provide or anything that I can do, obviously, I'm here to do that.
Is there a motion that anyone would like to make on this item? You may.
No, I just wanted to offer some comments.
Yeah.
One, the schedule, the reason it's here so quickly is not staff. We just recently were notified of this. We knew for the last 2 years that the owners were attempting to sell it, but it was just recently that Mr. Rao and I got notified, and then we asked to start the process, and they said they needed to close quickly. 2, I think the biggest issue I'm hearing is about the management contract, which under the current city code, that authority is technically delegated to the Public Assembly Facilities Commission. But I think it's such a major undertaking that it probably should come back to this council. Ben, how many years are left on that contract? It's a 15-year management contract?
That's correct. It's about 2 more, I think.
So there's not much time left on that agreement. One thing we could potentially consider if the sellers need to, the buyers need to close before the August meeting, is the potential, if they would accept it, of a very short-term extension on the management contract, bring that back through the commission to this body, because I think that is where the bigger issues are that Councilmember Mayor Pro Tem has brought up before about the subsidy, about the issues related to the employees, the issues related to marketing, all those things that it's a major management fee contract. So that might be I'll talk to staff and the owner to see if there's a way to do that, so that we could.
Well, I'll thank you for the information. Is there a motion? Okay.
Can we move this forward without a recommendation?
Is that the motion?
Move forward.
We have a motion to move it forward without recommendation. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstaining?
And can you all let us know, as staff, what you need from us before Monday night so we can include it in your packages? I can get the estoppel agreement.
So you understand what I need clearly?
Yes, but understand they're in legal leave, but I'll be happy to get them to you. The estoppel agreement, and I don't have the assignment relating to the management agreement because that's still being worked on, as I understand, but I'll get you what I have.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I'm just interested in the staff summary. It didn't have to be in legalese.
Okay.
If there are any differences other than what the current contract is, I just need to know what they are.
Gotcha.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
It will be on the agenda Monday night, this coming Monday, which is the 19th or 20th or something. Okay. G4.
Item G4, report on demolition assessment at 4640 Indiana Avenue.
Okay, this is information only. I see Mr. Richardson is here. Did you receive a copy of all this that we received? Would you like to come to the podium?
Chairman Clark.
Oh.
Let me kick this off, please. It's actually more than information only. It's an action item. And there's a memo at your place.
Oh, excuse me.
And the memo recommends from staff that we actually cancel the demolition assessment and in return place a restrictive covenants on the property on this one property, and staff wishes to work with Mr. Richardson, who's interested in developing this property for housing for low moderate income, as well as he has other properties that he's interested in working with the city on to do some type of development for low moderate income. Actually has some properties on Liberty Street, Indiana, several key properties that we think would be beneficial and create win-wins for he and the city.
So you're recommending that we remove the demolition assessment and apply a, how did you describe that?
I guess it's a restriction of some type on the deed that the attorney.
Yeah, and let us come back also with a formal resolution, but essentially what would happen is that we would record after both he and the city has signed it, a declaration of restricted covenants and conditions requiring him to rehab the property or build a house that's going to be leased to moderate and low-income persons for some period of time, whatever the council wishes, in exchange for canceling the demolition assessment.
Okay, whose ward is this?
Councilor Adams.
Ms. Adams, do you have comments? This is your ward.
I have had a discussion with Mr. Page. I did get the information. I think Mr. Page and staff and Mr. Richardson, I commend you for trying to work this out with staff. But they also know that I have a high bar of expectation. And I don't want to see anything else but positive good out of this. And I don't need for it to be, 2, 3, 4 years. You come back. Mr. Page and I have talked. I need this to happen, and I'm putting this in your hands. Okay?
Okay, Ms. Light.
If you all had a chance to actually read the history on this, it started 6 years ago. Mr. Richardson has been totally intransigent about working with the city. He has put up no trespassing, you can't bring an inspector on. He has promised numerous times to do repairs and everything, and has not done one single thing until the city finally tore down the house. I am sorry, I will not support the city being in any sort of business relationship with Mr. Richardson. That's just one vote, but I will just tell you, I see this all the time in community development and on our demolition lists. People who say they're going to do something and don't, who are notified by staff of a hearing, don't show up, don't respond. Okay, I'm just not going to do business with them. So.
Okay. Ms. Richardson, I'm hearing a comment from the council person for the ward that she doesn't want this to drag on forever, and I hear some concerns there. And I'm going to look to the councilman because this is really your area. Does it make sense to have the city actually come back with a specific motion and have you review it?
Yes, yes, because there need to be some requirements. There needs to be some timelines. There needs to be a plan. All of that. I need to see that, because if this is not a win-win for the city and the community and Mr. Richardson, then I'm not going to support it. But I need something there to make compliance transparent to not just me, but the citizens in the community and all parties involved. Because that's the chair of the Community Development General Government Committee. I don't want to be disrespectful to her comments, because I agree with her. I can't go with Mr. Richardson and we just walk out the door and there's no requirements in place, because then everybody's going to want this. And I need, Mr. Richardson, you and I, you need to understand that I mean what I'm saying here. If this turns out to be a great thing, I'll be the first one to cheerleader for you. But if it's not, I'm going to hold staff accountable. Okay?
Mr. Richardson, what I'm recommending is that the staff, the legal staff, and Mr. Carmen I don't know if she'll personally do it, but someone from our office may contact you. And you two work together in cooperation with the city council person to try to come up with something that kind of makes sense for everybody. I don't see any time sensitivity here. It's already torn down.
It's already torn down. It's been
Right.
going on for 6 years.
I mean, it's not like, just say 6 years, what's 6 years in a month? But I can't vote on something till I have the motion, and this is just a letter of suggesting it. Is that all right with everybody?
Yes.
Could I say? I just
Thank you,
wanted
sir.
I
Someone
want-
will be getting in touch with you.
I just wanted to make
Yeah,
a
you may
comment,
say whatever you-
clarify
give your name
something
and-
for Ms. Light.
Give your name and a record
Okay.
for the record.
George Richardson at 2505 Lewis Street. I haven't owned the property for 6 years. The letters, a lot of the information that was sent out went to the previous owner. I purchased it in June of 2013, and this demolition that happened to me was done in less than 24 months.
Okay.
And as you can look at the pictures from the information that you sent, you can see the progression that was going on. I ran into some financial issues, so it wasn't a problem. And the no trespassing sign was because I think her name was Ola Brown. She went over to the property and took some good lumber of mine. You have no pictures of that. I have pictures of the lumber that was taken. So that's why the no trespassing sign was put up, because it took some lumber, and that's where it all started from. That's why I came down here the first time to discuss that. How was I going to be reimbursed for that lumber that was taken? That's all it was. But I understand your situation, and I believe it will be a good relationship. All it was a working capital issue. That's all it was.
There's no way we can really discuss in detail because we don't have the details. So I think it's a good plan, and we will go from there. Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
I'm going to tell you right now, there's no way we can finish the budget between now and 6 o'clock. What I'm going to suggest we start and continue tomorrow. And I think the option was at 2 o'clock tomorrow.
Yes.
How does that fit with the committee members? Ms. Burke, is that time okay with you?
Yeah.
I don't know if we have any choice, but Ms. Adams? Is that
No, I'm
okay?
good.
I know you can come anytime. Ms. Montgomery? Is that okay with you, 2 o'clock tomorrow? You checking? Yeah, we'll have a light lunch before. Let me tell you one thing I do want to do before we leave, and I'm not sure if we're going to have time to do much more than that. After the initial meeting, there were a number of emails sent to Mr. Garrity with concerns on the budget. And one of my jobs as the chairman here is to try to come up with something that 5 people like. So I would like to go around the room, and we're all here, which I'm glad we are, and to have everyone have an opportunity to address Mr. Rao and Mr. Garrity on any issues you have, pro, cons. I kind of like this, but I don't like that. So we can kind of get a feel, because we had all these emails going back and forth, and I had a hard time discerning who wanted what and this, that, and the other. With that, Mr. Rao, I did ask that you did give everybody a copy of the questions. We started with the overview last week, and I think, do we have a few pages left in it?
Yes, yes, sir, we do.
Why don't we pick up on that, and then we'll go from there. And guys, it's the one that looks like this. Okay, what page would you like for us to go to?
Well, we actually, it's a new presentation that you have at your
All right.
places where we start with the community agency funding recommendations.
Okay, we'll start with page 3 then.
So we'll go over those and then just a very brief overview of the capital plan.
Okay, keep going.
So back in the fall, we initiated our new process for receiving applications from community agencies regarding funding for the upcoming fiscal year. The Community Agency Allocation Committee reviewed all of the applications and made recommendations to the city manager. What you see here in the next several slides is basically the city manager's recommendations that have been included in the proposed budget. First slide here, these are the Arts, Culture, and Human Services agencies. The recommendation is for most of the existing agencies, to hold the funding at the same level as the current year, 15-16. We do have some new funded agencies here. The Center for Creative Economy is one. There's an amount of $25,000 proposed for that organization. That is for the Creative Startups Accelerator Program that they will be managing to help develop the creative economy. And then also, in terms of an increase, you have Old Salem, $175,000 there. That breaks down $135,000 for operating assistance, $25,000 and a one-time contribution for their community day in August, and the $15,000 reimbursement for services that they provide in the historic district that the city provides, like leaf collection and the street sweeping. You can see the next slide, the continuation of that. We do have also an increased amount of funding for the Work Family Resource Center, increasing that to $25,450. A couple of new agencies in there, the Shepherd Center of Greater Winston-Salem, a $15,000 amount, and Youth in Transition, $18,340. Under the Successful Outcomes After Release program, $50,000 budgeted in proposed grants there for Eureka Ministry, the Piedmont Tri-Regional Council of Governments, Self-Empowerment Lasts Forever, and the Holly House from the YWCA. So altogether, a little over $1.2 million from General Fund, Oxby Tax, and some Housing Finance Assistance funding. The next couple of slides list out the agencies that would receive funding through our CDBG home, basically our federal housing funds. Those have already been incorporated into the Consolidated Housing and Community Development Plan, which was approved by the council in April. So I'm not really going to go into detail.
These are pass-throughs.
These are pass-throughs, yes, sir.
Okay.
So really, so the next slide continues that list. You also have the Emergency Solutions Grant funds for homelessness services and programs. Slide 7 continues that list. So you have total in terms of those funding sources, $1,675,080. And then finally, just wanted to note the agencies for which funding was not included in the proposed budget. You have the Freedom Tree, which was a proposal to fund a share food co-op program. Then the Josh Howard Foundation, which provides mentoring services for ex-offenders. Women of Wisdom, this specifically was for the expansion of their House of Refuge, which is also a reentry program. Homeland Ministries, which provides programs to do a holistic development of individuals. They've had some mentoring programs, a food pantry, those types of services. And then finally, Winston-Salem Industries for the Blind. The funding they requested would be to modernize their optical manufacturing operation. So those are the agencies for which funding was not recommended.
Did our independent group of folks that we have review all these?
Yes, sir.
They did. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Montgomery had a question.
It was just the last one on Industry for the Blind, although I'm not always, and just after you see the bottom line with them, and there's lots of funding mechanisms received on that side, but just from this piece, from an economic development standpoint, was there any implications in reference to this provide additional opportunities for employment, production, or anything like that?
Councilman Montgomery, I'd have to look at that information and look back in their application and provide that for you.
In that regard, just following, I think that's a really good point. Maybe we should circle back on it and look at it as an economic development project, if it's a job generation or something like that. Following up, Councilman Montgomery.
Okay, Ms. Madams.
But that goes back to my email about add a little bit more to the detail. Like, if it's economic development and it's a job creation thing, then we should have been able to lump at least 4 or 5, maybe that were not quite making the charge, but at least we would understand that, okay, Industries for the Blind has X amount of people employed and they want to hire 20 more, then we could have probably tried to figure something out. Same thing for me goes with, my passion is veterans and reentry and special populations. I wanted to see those programs that are applicable to just veterans. I wanted to also see those programs that are applicable to reentry, because if we didn't do Women of Wisdom and Whole Man Ministries and those types of, those two, then my next question would have been, and maybe should have been, okay, so what are the rest of them doing that these two didn't even get a look? And they've never been funded before. So I'm like, are we serious about veterans? Are we serious about reentry? And I know I still believe, like last time, every budget I've been a part of, I would rather make sure that everybody got something versus nothing, because they're helping those populations that the rest of us are not really, other groups aren't helping. And most of these populations affect the urban core of the city of Winston-Salem.
Okay, so you would like to see a separate list of
Yes,
the
sir.
reentry organizations and the veteran organizations?
Yes.
Ms. Burke.
Also, when these agencies ask for us to give them, do we see how many, where they get grants from other places?
Yes.
Okay, and they give you a list of where, and how they're working to try to get other monies from other places?
Yes, ma'am. When they provide their financial information, they show all their sources of funding from other from other resources, whether it's from other federal, state grant programs or from fees that they may charge for entry, depending on their operation.
Another question.
Yes, ma'am.
Do we get reports from them to show, other than the year to year when we talk with them?
They do provide, I think, 5 years of financial information as part of their application. They also are required to provide their audited financial statements, at least for the most recent audited fiscal year.
And I was thinking more about what are they doing when they brought up the industrial for the blind? How many jobs they may have there? But if you talk about one of these other agencies, let's say Old Salem, their Arts Council, do they send us a report of their involved activities?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I had some other hands up. Ms. Light, did you have your hand up?
I don't know if this is when you want comments about funding or specific
Okay,
ones.
we're just talking about grantee agencies right now, but you can certainly make a
that's-
comment there. Yeah, go right ahead.
Okay. Obviously, we're all interested in the outcomes after release. And I would just like to put in a plug for the Hawley House from the YWCA, because it is the only women's, after release drug abuse center. It has room for 6 people. That's it. And what they're asking for is to be able to have an outpatient kind of system along with their in-house or their residence program. And if we could come up with some more money for that, I would appreciate it, because they do such extraordinary work.
Okay, Mr. Bessie, you had your hand up?
Yeah, I don't want to burn committee time revisiting every one of these decisions, but I've been asked about the share co-op.
Which one?
Share, it's listed under Grants Community Agencies, page 8.
Page 8.
Freedom Tree is how it's
Yes, sir.
labeled. Can you provide us information about why the reviewing committee did not recommend funding?
I can. They did not really provide a business plan as part of their application, and I think that was a concern of the committee.
Thank you. If you can just check on that.
Yes.
And that was Freedom Tree?
Yes.
No,
Food co-op.
It's the
Yeah.
Share Food Co-op. It's listed here under Freedom Tree.
Freedom Tree is the one that's listed here.
With IDR or.
Okay, I just want to be sure I got the right name.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else on these before we go to the next page? Okay. Continue. Oh, excuse me, I'm sorry.
Just a
Mr.
comment on the sense that we have, although I see we did not fund, I'm not sure what the exact request is for Homeland Ministry, but I know we have partnered with them on properties, on housing, and I'm not sure if this was a funding of a position, but I know we have, and we continue to work with them on housing and development on that side.
Okay.
We'll check on the details.
So
there.
I would get, we did have a Citizens Committee review this, and I think their comments on some of these areas would be helpful for the, and don't need to send us the whole thing, because I know it's 3 pages thick, but on the ones that people have questions would be nice.
Yes, sir.
Okay, now we'll go to the capital plan
Yes, sir.
on page 10.
So the 6-year capital plan, which would run from fiscal year 2017 to 2022, totals $369.5 million. We did organize this document just as we've done with the operating budget by our strategic focus areas, and you can see there healthy environment represents the largest share, almost 77%, and that's mainly because of the water and sewer infrastructure, solid waste disposal, those areas. So just very quick highlights. I mentioned the healthy environment. There is $17.2 million in two-thirds bonds programmed in the 6-year period. The upcoming year is not a two-thirds bond year, but we do have that, which we use usually for major maintenance, street resurfacing, those types of needs. In terms of specifically for the upcoming fiscal year, the capital budget is $67.2 million, mainly for water and sewer infrastructure. But we do propose appropriating some general fund balance to handle some major maintenance needs in our recreation and parks facilities, to finish out the city's fiber network, and to address some major maintenance needs with Fire Station number 5 and a small facility need in City Yard. In addition to that, we also are proposing $2 million in new debt financing to address some major maintenance needs at the Winston-Salem Fairgrounds, based on the recommendations that came out of the new master plan from last year.
Okay, and if you have questions as we go, we'll take them, and Mr.
Okay,
Adams has a
we
question.
just need, if you could get us the information along with whatever else you're gonna get. Give us a breakdown of events revenue brought in at the fairground, for the year, just for the past year.
Okay.
Okay?
Yes, ma'am.
And on that, the maintenance needs, will that address anything within the annex or just the education building?
It'll be, a lot of the investment will be in the annex, investing in so a lot of the major maintenance systems, operating systems like the HVAC, those needs.
Good insurance on the ice maker?
Good insurance on the ice maker. There is money in there to potentially replace the piping in the floor, but I still want to figure out a way how you can x-ray it before you start tearing up the floor.
Okay, so on page 11, we need more information on what we're doing at the fairgrounds.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Okay. The next couple of slides, just wanted to present this initial concept, and these are very early estimates, but this is based on our unfunded capital needs. We still have $513 million in identified unfunded capital needs. So we want to just present this idea to you about a potential 2018 bond package. The breakdown of the bond orders is very similar to what was approved as part of the 2014. It's also a really continuation of funding for a number of the areas, so you can see there that under economic development, additional monies for economic development sites and infrastructure, and monies for the RUCA program. Under housing, additional funding there for housing neighborhood development projects, and then some targeted funding for the TURN program. With our public safety facilities, significant amount of money there, $10 million for real more significant investments in our fire station renovations, probably very similar to what we've funded with the 3 stations that are being renovated with the 2014 referendum. Construction of a fire skills enhancement facility, a public safety driver training facility, fire maintenance facility expansion, and police fleet operations facility. So $14 million there. Under Parks and Recreation, a number of these would be kind of continuation of the park master plans that have been in place and that we're doing phase 1 this year. So you can see there the various projects. We also include some small amounts to still address some of the maintenance needs that we have out there. Some of those smaller maintenance needs that are still necessary, and we call that neighborhood park enhancements. So those smaller dollar items that were in the current referendum, it would be very similar to those types of investments. $20.4 million there. And then on the next slide, investments in our streets and sidewalks. Here again, more funding for street resurfacing, additional funding for sidewalk construction repairs, and then appropriation of funds for the Business 40 corridor improvements, the multi-use path, the downtown street improvements, and some of the Business 40 betterments, funding for concrete street rehabilitation, continuing funding for further investments in Old Salem and the infrastructure there, and bicycle pedestrian projects and greenways, so $49.6 million. So in terms of the general obligation bond total there, $104 million in a potential 2018 package. And then we're also putting the idea out that to continue our investment in the Fairgrounds Master Plan, $10 million there that could potentially come from limited obligation bonds. The master plan had identified, I think, close to $25 million in need. And so there's the $2 million that we're proposing in the budget for 16-17 to really address the most critical needs. But then the $10 million would go towards additional maintenance needs and to start actually looking at some actual enhancements. A lot of what we're planning to do will be somewhat invisible, but the $10 million could get us into really making some enhancements to improve the appearance, the aesthetics at the fairgrounds. So all totaled $114 million in what would be a potential bond package.
Okay, Mr. Bessie had his hand.
Yeah, just the last 2 items under streets and sidewalks, bicycle and pedestrian projects and greenways, relatively low amounts, and my recollection from our previous bond packages, that was based on the assumption that projects were going to be eligible for matching federal funding. I don't think we can assume that. So I would suggest that we revisit the total projected.
Yes, sir.
And keep in mind, we only pass a one-year budget, even for a capital budget, but we do a several-year lookout because many projects are multi-year or multi-phased, and that's why we look a little bit further out in this area. Mr. Mayor, you had your hand up.
Yeah, just thank you, Ben. Looking at the Corporation Plaza renovations, I know our fountains over there have been off for almost a year and a half, almost 2 years probably. I know we did a major engineering look at those things. Are we saying we can't have the fountains back on until we have a bond issue to do these renovations?
I'm going to look to Ms. Driver to give you an update.
Driver, come on up.
Good evening. We are investigating and nearing the completion of the investigation at Corporation Plaza, and so we should have a good idea of how much it's going to cost to fix the issues out there. And so, no, I don't think that we will be waiting until that time. Okay. But we will have to find some funding for that before then.
Good. It just gives the city such a negative front door. I mean, it makes us look like a second-place city if we can't keep our fountains running, you know?
Right.
Okay, but you're working, that's an active project.
That is an active project, yes. And we should have recommendations for repairs within a couple months.
Okay. Yeah, we're talking about both the waterfall as well as the fountains around it, everything.
Yes, that is correct.
Thank you. Ms.
Thank
Adams.
you.
Yes, I'd just like to say, Courtney, a suggestion. If during the course of trying to find out the costs, we might look at some newer, innovative type fountains that I've seen in my travels that probably don't cost nowhere close to what we're spending over there. And they're very simplistic, but they just so beautiful, whether it's in, I can't think of Jacksonville or wherever, but New Bern and places like that. I think we might want to do that as an option as well moving forward. If we can't do it all because of costs, do what we can, present that to us, but also give us some options to say, well, this fountain, if we did this, would cost us this, reduce water, and everything else.
Yes.
Okay.
Sure.
Okay, Mr. Montgomery.
Yeah, just on the bond, potential bond opportunities in the future. And I know that when we look at different bond projects, that primary spending are on physical assets in some way, some form or fashion, whether there are roads, sidewalks, whether they're building improvements, investments in housing. They're tangible assets in which we invest dollars in, our greenways. And one thing that I've heard from community, which I think is a just question, is investment in human capital in the sense of job development and training pieces as we look at bonds, whether or not there are opportunities for us when we look at training and training individuals and preparing workforces in our community. How do we find additional dollars in our community to actually invest in the neighborhoods and community that need that additional job training? And I'm not sure if it's in the bond component dollars to do that, but I believe that it needs to be a part of the conversation. And it's not a physical asset. It's not something that we can do a value engineering on what we can and can't do on it, but I think that it's something, if we want to move to the city that we say we want to move into, I think when we look at how we invest in that, needs to be looked at a little bit differently, and how we find dollars to continue investing in that, because it's a question that I get often in terms of, I see we're investing in parks and recreations, and yes, we want to relax in our community, but some folks can't relax because they're not able to find employment, and so how do we reconcile that part? And I think it's a good question.
Okay. Any specific questions on that? It is right at 6 o'clock, and as I said, what I'd like to do is go around the table, and any questions, comments, concerns you may have, even if you've already communicated them to the city manager, I'm trying to hear kind of where everybody is, and I know Ms. Lott, you specifically sent an email, but I'm going to start with Mr. Taylor since you're at the head of the table there.
Well, I'll make one transition statement. Of course, public safety will meet right after we finish up with finance. Councilmember Adams brought up an interesting point, and so did Councilmember Light, about public safety and how we look at that in terms of the SOAR program. Well, all of the grantee agencies that have something to do with SOAR or public safety have been itemized under SOAR. We'll be reviewing that budget in just a moment, along with the police, fire, and emergency management. But I think this is a good budget. It addresses some of the pay raises that are necessary for us to continue the quality of life and the quality of service for our citizens. We did have some concerns about public safety. Those have been addressed. I think it's a good budget, and it's one that I can support and get behind. Thank you for the opportunity to be heard.
Ms. Light?
Besides the Pauley House, which, as I say, is dear to my heart, trying to find more money for them, I am very, very pleased that we're looking at further increase in the minimum pay, and if we can just start that progression up to what's called living wage. So if we can get to $11 this year, then hopefully in years to come.
Overall, I'm very pleased with the pay raise for our employees. I think we'll see that money come back into our community. I think that's money that the velocity of it comes back to us very quickly. So I think we'll see businesses improve because that money's going to get spent. It's not going to get socked away. A couple things that concern me is I don't see where we have any money for an additional body in inspections, and I think that could come back to bite us. Also, our
what inspections do you mean?
For building inspections.
Building inspections. Okay.
Sorry, because that has the potential to slow down the development community, which could hurt us in our tax base. I do also have concerns about eliminating the body for the data analysis for the police. I think that's an area that we're saying we're going to have challenges with the bodies on the street, but we also are now gathering more data. And I think in order to analyze that data, we need additional personnel. So I think that's going to get stripped out, and I think that I'd like to see that put back in. If it helps at all, I'll take my expense that we're talking about, our expense increase. I'll throw that back in the pot to help pay for that. I know it's not a whole big expense, but I'll give mine up in order to hire that guy or gal.
Mr. Montgomery, Mayor, I'll come back to you later. You're not one of us.
Remember that.
Mr. Montgomery, you got anything you want to say?
Yeah. When it comes to the budget as a whole, I think there are good things. I think there are challenges that exist there. I think it's always a question of when you submit something to community in which there's a tax increase, and that you have to very, very well look at what are you paying for. And I am one that I think that taxpayers have a willingness to pay for something in which they can see the impact. It's difficult to ask somebody to pay for something where they cannot see what that pays for. Anybody goes to the store, you're not going to pay for something that you don't believe is going to be valuable to you. And I think in reference to being able to better compensate our employees is something worthwhile paying. And I think that it's very true that if you take care of the people that do the work, they take care of you. And so that means being able to take care of the citizens of the city of Winston-Salem. Around the increase of the base pay component as something that I've very much been an advocate for and pushing that we move that base along with other on this council, being able to move that towards an increase for those individuals who come to work every day and do some of the jobs in our community that are so valuable and that are actually challenged in other communities to do. I think is incumbent upon us if we're going to have serious conversations about taking care of the least of those and how we deal with issues of poverty in our community. Then we have to be a leader in that. And hopefully by doing these things, we're able to set examples for even the private sector and community in terms of what they're able to do and how we can push them in that manner, as well as some things around public safety and some challenges there. I do support the police in many areas and ways and look for us to continue to find creative ways to make sure that our entire community is safe.
Mr. Adams. Ms. Adams.
Yes, you've heard me earlier say that I have a proponent for any reentry program and any veterans program. All of the programs are important, but as taxpayers, we need to remember, and I think we forget until it's budget time, that we as a community of voters and citizens, we have to decide what is important to us. And instead of waiting to that one time during the year that, well, I want this and I want that, but I think what everybody needs to have, and maybe we need to do a better understanding, helping them to understand as to how taxes affect everybody's quality of life in the city. If you want more opportunities for everyone, then somebody's going to have to pay for it. And whether that be the least of us or the ones with the most, you're going to have to pay. And what we've done now, I can support the employees' compensation, and that's still a work in progress. We just put a Band-Aid on it to get us to the next budget and maybe past a year and a half from now. But every year, during the year, I've asked the city manager, you saw my email, we need to be working on this every day. You don't have corporations that bring the new product in when the product is due to go to market. We've got to do that always, and they have to keep us engaged as to what it's looking like. That training analyst for HR, how can you give people a raise, or you say we want you to develop and be better to move up the chain of command, but there is no training and development going in-house. Corporations all over America backed out of training and development right before the recession hit. But they are hard at it now because they want the best of the best to be able to their cities to grow and people to want to come to it to recruit our citizens. So I'd like to see us look at that training analyst. I can understand the data analysis. We need that too. But we need that training analyst to help our people who are not making big money, okay? I'd also still like us to keep kicking that can down the road and stop it on transportation. I know the chair of Public Works is working on that, but I'd like to see us, that's one of those too. You got compensation, transportation, top of the list. Planning for the future. Can't be, again, council members and staff, where we look at this a month before it's due to us. We're talking about the information on the hotels and everything else, or how quick we can get information. Information is key to be able to make great decisions. So I'm asking the city manager moving forward, I'd like to see us have an update on the budget every 3 months, a quarter. I got to have it, because I don't need to see at the end of the year when I now need to make a decision that my police say they need a police analyst for data. My training people are saying, and the people that work for us that do the jobs that pay the minimum wages, they need to be trained and developed. If we're not doing that for them, then why wouldn't I leave and go to Greensboro or High Point or Thomasville? And that's my 2 cents. The budget, I'll support it.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, and mayor, and council people, and city manager, and all the staff, and others who are here, to me, the morale of the employees, this is most important. And that helps when employees feel that they're in a fair situation, and that if you talk about the lowest salaries that are being made, well, they have to spend the same amount for their bread as the one who's making the highest salary in city government. And I know the city manager has on occasions not even wanted to get an increase in salary, which is a good man with the economy like it is. But I think when we also look at training our employees, and I've said this to him, that the employees who are not the top of the job, some of our employees who are in other jobs need to be in the training. And with the technology we have, they don't always have to leave here to get the training. They can be trained right at the site where they are. Also, we still use too much paper, and I would hope we could find a way to cut back. I am an example. I have asked them, don't bring these big books to me anymore. I do mine on the internet, because we need to be using and reading the internet. And I told them I will be dealing with an iPod.
Uh-oh.
iPad, excuse me.
Somebody
I will
in
be
trouble.
dealing with the
She's gonna
thing
be
that you
using
all
an
continue to
iPod.
look at, talking to it,
I bet.
because we're senior citizens, doesn't mean that we
That's
don't want to
right.
keep these brains working. And the staff can tell you on a daily basis, I'm giving them assignments from what's on that internet, and I'm saying, don't bring me any more paper. I do it, and I thank you, Ms. Bradshaw, for making sure I can get to that link and I can understand what's going on. But I just want to say this, I appreciate the employees, and they all need to feel good. And to you young folks up here who seem to think age is a joke, I'm going to tell everybody who go out there to vote, don't vote for them, because they don't like old folks like me.
Okay.
I'm going to tell them. They heard it, didn't they? Clearly.
All right.
Okay.
Mr. Bessie.
I'll save my formal comments. I'll second Councilmember McIntosh's suggestion regarding reinstating the additional analysis position, and you can take my increase increment and put it toward
Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think we should not take lightly the realignment of the budget this year. the staff has restructured the budget to align with our strategic priorities, and that's a huge thing.
really
I
good.
mean, I used to work in the budget office
Good
years
job.
ago. I know what a big job it was for Ben
Good
and your
job.
staff. Great job on pulling that together. It really makes so much sense to get at what Councilman Adams has always talked about, those priorities and how we're spending to it. I think, like everyone else up here, I'm most concerned about the growing violence in our city. And so I'm glad to see that, as you pointed out, Mr. Chairman, we've got to keep our police officers in place, continue to lose them. So I'm really appreciative of the retention effort as part of the police salary structure there, and congratulate the manager working with the police department on that. In fact, we are paying our employees, trying to get them fairly. Poverty is going to be a continued issue for us. We'll be coming forward later this year, hopefully with some strong recommendations on our poverty initiative. We may need a little money to help with that. So hopefully have some flexibility in our budget going forward. But I think it's a really solid, well thought out budget.
Okay. Well, I'm going to rain on everybody's parade. I do not like the budget. To add 40 positions after we just increased taxes significantly last year is asking too much of the citizens of this community. You can't have your cake and eat it all the time. The citizens committed to $138 million. We're spending it. I think we're spending it well, but that doesn't mean you can afford everything you want. I think to add 40 positions in 1 year is outrageous. Also, because to me, we still haven't addressed some fundamental issues we need to address. And by the way, I'm even more confused about the police department after I got this, because the chief last week told me we were 52 people short, and now I read this, we're 12 people short. I'm not sure what's going on there. But I do think we have to take steps to be sure we can stabilize our police department. And I'm not sure we have finished that. I know Mr. Garrity has put some things in here about working with some marketing programs, scholarships, or whatever it may be. But we haven't put a dollar tag on that yet, and I'm concerned that we're adding 2 cents to the budget and 40 people with not addressing that issue. We haven't addressed the issue with TransAid. I think that's going to cost us some money. And this whole look, to me, we also haven't addressed the issue of the market pay adjustment. We got a 43% turnover in light equipment. I know some of them got transferred somewhere else. Well, the reason they got transferred somewhere else is because we had turnover there. I think there's going to have to be some checks written there to get that to where it needs to be. The concept of the livable wage, and I know we're getting ready to study that in detail, but it's not just going from $10 to $11 to $12. It's what the ratchet effect of that all the way up. It affects the person above them, the person above them, the person above them. And I think there are some areas that needs to be addressed. That's probably, I think it's utility. Is it the operators that we're having some excessive turnover in? We may have to address that, and that may impact some other stuff. So we got a budget, I think, it's got too many people added to it, too big a tax increase, and it's still not addressing some important issues that we haven't addressed. And if we don't address them, we're still going to have too much turnover and some other issues that haven't been worked. I'll also just make a quick comment on the training position. We currently use outside trainers. To me, that makes more sense because you get an expert in retirement or Social Security or whatever they come in, or how to do this or that and the other. And to think you can replace all those different talents with one person, I'm not sure about that, but I'll leave that up to the others. But anyway, for what it's worth, I just think we're trying to have our cake and eat it too quicker than we can. Thank you.
I mean, just a couple quick comments on the questions that were raised. One, what we sent out over the weekend, staff suggested cutting 10 out of those new 40 positions, cutting it by 10, primarily to fund a aggressive recruiting process for the police department. I believe when the chief gave you the number, Chairman Clark, he was looking at the projection for this time next year versus the current number. That's where we asked the same question. But it is a serious problem in the police department. It is a serious problem across the state. They had the lowest number of recruit classes in the state of North Carolina, I think, since they've been counting those. So that's a major issue. Councilmember McIntosh, I did check on inspections. We did add 2 last year. They didn't request any new positions, but Mr. Norby, I talked to him about it. What he suggested is that they watch the the work activity permit level, and we can always add them during the year if needed. So he was comfortable watching it for the moment. That's why he didn't ask for any. On the Holly House, one thing we did suggest in the proposed changes was putting another $50,000 in contingency for SOAR grantee agencies, having those agencies, new ones and existing ones, come back and go through the Public Safety Committee and to Council. So there'd be the potential there for them to ask for more. Training, we did suggest cutting that position, but leaving in, I think, $50,000 for additional contract training with Forsyth Tech. That's been very successful. We do have one training position in-house already.
Yeah, more.
But we try to come with a compromise, but I do agree that the more training we can do with existing staff, the better.
I may mention, Mr. Metcalf, just probably before you came on the council, when things were really booming, we were chasing our tail trying to get enough inspectors, and one number we did, Stuart, was the percent that were done within 3 days or something like that. Am I?
Yeah.
2 days.
2 days. And we plotted that percent because for a while there we could not hire and train inspectors quick enough, and of course then everything fell off and we didn't need them. But
My concern stems from we've got at least one very senior person who's leaving, and we also have an electronic input device that's coming in that are going to tax even the existing number of people that we have.
Okay. Everyone's had their 2 cents. We're going to meet again at 2 o'clock tomorrow, and one way or the other, we will have something to give to the council next Monday night. Is everybody in agreement? We'll meet here. Mr. Taylor, thank you for your, I think I've been last 2 times ended on time, so 2 out of 3 is not bad.
Not so bad.
We'll stand adjourned, and
Public safety in
public
5
safety will
minutes.
start in 5 minutes.